Good morning, everyone. So, it's wonderful to see you all back. Thank you very much. And for those who've just joined us, welcome. I'm Beryl Morris, for those that don't know you, don't know me, sorry. And I have a few housekeeping items. First of all, I'd like to note that the Pro Vice Chancellor of Research Infrastructure, Professor Paul Bonington, is sitting here today. Welcome, Paul. Thank you. If you have bags, we have got a secure place for them just across the hallway. So Peter, standing over there, will help you find somewhere to put your bag for the day before you have to depart. Please remember that if you want to leave during a session, go up the stairs and out the back. If you hear some fire alarms or anything like that, proceed out the doors and follow Peter. If he's not putting bags away. And toilets straight across the hall. And don't let your mobile phone be the one that we're recording on our recording today. So put it to silent. And I think that's all the housekeeping. Jill, did I forget anything? No? Okay, we'll keep going then. Thank you. I have the pleasure, first of all, I wish to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we are meeting. And across Australia, Tern occupies many lands, and we're very appreciative of the custodianship that has been provided by elders past, present and emerging. And today we're meeting on the lands of the Turrbal and Juggerah, and if anyone wants to put something into the notes about where they're from, that would be good. Today we have our keynote speaker, our patron, Professor Andrew Campbell, is going to talk to us. And for those who weren't with us yesterday when Andrew opened the symposium, I'll just remind you that he runs Triple Helix Consulting, and he was the inaugural chair of the Tern board when we started, running his first board meeting in April 2010, and stayed with us until he left for ACR in 2016, the Australian Centre for International Agricultural Research. And Andrew has held many positions across Australia that have influenced the way in which we treat the environment today, being really the instigator of land care, and is a patron of Victorian land care, and has so many different titles and hats that I think I'll just leave it at that, Andrew, and welcome you to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Beryl. And just before I start, can I say what a pleasure it is to be back here with Tern 15 years on, and to see some of the same faces that were involved at the start is also very heartwarming, and continuity is really important in these sorts of national collaborative endeavours. And the face that I'm most pleased to see again, of course, is that of Beryl. I'm sure there are many people in this room and online who have benefited from Beryl seeing an opportunity, making some links, leavening it perhaps with a small bit of funding to lubricate the wheels. But Beryl's done an amazing job keeping the whole show in the air for this long, and that's not an inconsiderable achievement. Well done, Beryl. Beryl asked me to talk from the perspective of my most recent roles in international agriculture and food security. So I'm going to do that quite quickly, I hope. That's where I come from, in southwestern Victoria. We've been farming there since the 1860s, and I'm the fifth generation. That's some of my farm forestry in the foreground and the Grampians in the background. And I'm just going through this very quickly to to give you a little feel for the different lenses that I bring to this. So I started out as a forester, and I've always done recreational forestry on my own farm. As I was involved in the early days of land care with Rick Farley and Philip Toyne and others in getting up a national land care program. And then I did postgraduate study and moved sort of from forestry into rural sociology and knowledge systems at Wageningen, and came back to Canberra running the bush care program, and then was CEO of Land and Water Australia. And for those who weren't here yesterday, one of my mentors, or two of my mentors in that role, were the late Professor Peter Cullen and the late Leith Booley, who sadly we lost over the weekend, a Queensland champion and legend who's contributed so much, in particular to water. As Beryl said, I was the initial chair of the Tern Advisory Board, and then moved up to Darwin to become an academic for the first time from 2011 to 2016, which was where my team there were very actively involved, particularly in the Flux Tower network. And we heard from Matty Goddard yesterday, one of our PhD students. And as Beryl said, I moved to Canberra to take on the ACR role for 7 years. Under that role, under the Act, the CEO can only do 7 years, so I knew my retirement date well in advance. But then I got tapped to go to Montpellier to run the Global Agricultural Research Network, the CGIAR, as an interim CEO while they were recruiting and onboarding a new global CEO. So all of a sudden, when I thought I was about to retire, I had 9,600 staff in 90 countries and a research budget of $1 billion US. And now I just do little consulting jobs that appeal to me and look after the farm from a distance. So I'm bringing a bunch of different lenses to these observations today. So agriculture is actually the biggest thing that humans do on planet Earth. In terms of the human footprint on the planet, growing, distributing, processing, consuming and wasting food is the single biggest impact we have on the planet. Uses most of the water, clears most of the land, uses most of the ice-free land, is the biggest driver of eutrophication, and so on. It also has very significant impacts in the health system, both through nutrition, but also through zoonoses. COVID-19 was the 6th global pandemic since 1980. It's not a one-in-a-century thing. The next one is very likely within the next few years. And those zoonotic pandemics start on farms or in wet markets. So the way in which the food system works is fundamental to everything that we do. It's also by far the most effective way to lift people out of poverty, improving agricultural productivity, and in particular if you do it in ways that empower women, everyone feeds better and you get a big lift out of poverty. So indulge me for a moment. That's my dam. That's what I look out on from my bed down at the farm on the western side of the Grampians. And I'm very fond of that view. And in February this year, I woke up for some reason at 1 a.m. and looked out of my bedroom window towards that same dam to the Grampians. And I thought, hang on, it's not sunrise, it's not sunset. They're the fires. So the whole of the Grampians is alight, and that's at 1:30 in the morning. So thinking about agri-food systems and the Sustainable Development Goals, we can't achieve, in my view, about 12 of the 17 SDGs we simply can't achieve without transforming agri-food systems. But food security is intricately bound up with water security, energy security, biosecurity and health security. All of those feed into national and regional and global security through conflict and migration and forced movement of peoples. And all of those are amplified by climate change, both the direct impacts of climate change and extreme events, but also our adaptation and mitigation measures. So when you put all of that together, it's very clear that the 20th century type research we were doing, agri-centric, farm-centric, sector-specific, crop-specific, that sort of innovation and policy development is completely unfit for the challenges of the 21st century. So here's, this is inside one of my, I've got about 100 acres fenced off for environmental services, and I play around with woodlots and so on. And so it was quite terrifying the next morning to get up and see this fire with predicted easterly winds, that it was going to be coming straight at us. And the bits that I was most worried about were all my re-veg areas, because the grass, that's the only area with long grass. So we've had two agricultural revolutions. The initial one where humans first formed settlements and started to grow and breed crops and so on, and domesticate animals. And then the industrial agricultural revolution with mechanisation and scale and synthetic fertilisers and so on. We now need a third agricultural revolution whereby, for the first time in human history, we have to substantially increase food production without increasing the agricultural footprint. So broadly, since the Second World War, or even before that, we've doubled global food production about every 30 years. So conventional agriculture has been incredibly successful. But it's mainly done so by agriculture increasing its footprint, clearing more land, using more water, irrigating more land, cultivating more land, and pouring on more nutrients and energy. Now, for the first time, we have to figure out how to grow more and better and healthier food using less water, less nutrients, less land, and emitting less carbon. And that means having less leaky systems. It means much more closed-loop farming systems. That, of course, will require much more smart metering and sensing and telemetry and other cool tech that the people in this room know far more about than me. It also means understanding much more deeply what's happening beneath the soil and exploiting microbial activity more effectively. We wouldn't need to produce as much if we wasted less. So about a third of all food that we grow is wasted, and that has an enormous amount of embodied water and nutrients and energy and emissions. So if we can radically reduce waste, and that's part of the circular economy thinking, that means we don't have to put as much pressure on the natural resource base. And in my view, especially in Australia where we have plenty of land, we should be looking at the integrated production of food and fibre and energy and carbon sinks. So if the world was your farm, Australia's your best paddock for solar. It's one of your best paddocks for wind. And parenthetically, it's a terrible paddock for nuclear. In my view, Australian farmers should be producers and sellers and exporters of energy, not consumers and price takers. And we need to be growing far more food in cities and in peri-urban areas and link that to the waste and nutrient cycling scheme. People need to know what they're eating, and that means a broader, more accountable agriculture, which again depends on having trusted data and monitoring and sensing systems and so on underpinning it. So we're in terrible drought at the moment. That's a shot I took the other day. And if you think about that technical agenda for an agricultural revolution, that needs a policy agenda to complement it. I think we should be setting high-level goals. At the moment, we have a national goal to increase gross value of agricultural production to 100 billion by 2030. I'd rather we had some much smarter goals than just turnover, to think about our water productivity, our energy productivity and our nutrient productivity to become an overall carbon sink and to become a net energy producer, and the renewables agenda in rural Australia is extremely exciting. Agriculture should be seen as central to the food and health, energy and water systems, and that means getting urban people far more engaged. and kids. Instead of agriculture being seen as old and hard work and primitive and poor lifestyles and so on, it needs to be seen as a crucial part of the new economy with good jobs, well-paying and so on. Again, all of that requires new monitoring, measurements, accounting, traceability frameworks. So I'm just going to go into one practical example. I did a little job for MIL, Murrumbidgee Irrigation Limited. The Murrumbidgee Irrigation Scheme is an old, 100-year-old irrigation scheme. Produces about $1 billion of gross value on farm and $7 billion of value added in you've got McWilliams and Casellas and others, food and wine and fibre. They have a big job to do to replace all their old leaky channels with pipes and pumps and so on. And at the time of the carbon price, I did this work in 2009, they were going to be caught because their energy consumption with diesel pumps and so on was going to go up to more than 20,000 tonnes of emissions, which meant they were going to be caught by the carbon price. So we looked at what could they do. A biomass energy plant on Grape Mark, the prunings of the grapevines. They could cover all their channels with solar panels, have a large spider-shaped solar farm because they owned all the easements. And we worked out that at $50 a tonne, that would be a very profitable thing to do, $50 a tonne carbon price. They could grow 1,000 hectares of canola and run all their pumps on biodiesel, and they'd still need to plant a few trees. Essentially, we're going to turn a water company into a water, energy and carbon company. And they had the billing relationships with all their clients anyway. And with the staff of MIL, we developed the sustainability dashboard, deliberately designed to look like a tractor dashboard. And the idea was that this would run live in the head office, but on the website, and any MIL irrigator could go in and see how they're going. And so you'll notice it's got, how do I make that thing going? You've got broadly environmental, economic and social indicators with, just like a dashboard, the green zone's good, the red zone's where you don't want to be, and the needle's where we are now. They're measuring their water system efficiency, but they're also measuring how many farmers are turning up to our EnviroWise courses, how many school and community groups are we showing around, lost time injuries, staff happiness. Absolutely crucial out at Griffith if you want to attract good people. Retention of good people is one of their big challenges. So thinking about how all of that fits. And the idea of a dashboard is that there's no one dial that you optimise for. It's about keeping the whole thing in balance and to keep the whole show on the road. But again, that needs to be underpinned by good systems. So when I look at our innovation system for agriculture, all of our big challenges, climate, water, food, you can read the list, all of those are cross-sectoral. All of them have strong public good dimensions. And yet we still divide, the RDCs are cotton, grains, fish, sugar, meat, wool and so on. Our government departments are not organised in ways that help them to look at this in a holistic and integrated way. And the research that we need to do is very hard to organise through the systems that we currently have. But similarly, the links between research and what we do downstream from that also need a lot of work from that integration perspective. And again, you guys have a lot of the answers to help us take more integrated approaches through the sort of tools that you are expert in. So thinking about where we need to go, we're going to continue to get whacked by environmental change, not just immediate events, but also underlying events. Where my farming system is, where we've been since the 1860s, it looks as though we're going through a step change in weather like southwest WA has already been through. The systems that used to bring us reliable rains in our growing season now dump that rain in the Southern Ocean, And we now looks like we're moving into a step change, radically drier. The responses need to be able to be tailored down at those local and regional levels, and that's going to depend on community engagement. And we're going to have planning and delivery frameworks that enable us to look at these things in more integrated ways, with more decentralised leadership and decision making. You guys will remember the Lismore floods. The SES office was underwater. Even if it hadn't been, they only had 2 boats. So how were so many hundreds of people rescued off people's roofs that saved hundreds of lives? Through a Facebook group, organising a flotilla of tinnies. The locals had to do it themselves. So why don't we design the system that way? That's how the system should be designed. The notion that centralised cavalry coming over the hill approaches will save us in the sort of things we're going into is just fanciful in my view, completely misconceived. But doing it in that more subsidiary governance way requires really good data that everyone trusts, that's widely used by local government, state government, regional bodies, NGOs, and so on. Now, I'm not saying this is easy. And tragically, this tweet back in the days when Twitter was good, you notice it was 2014, I think. This guy says, here's a plot idea. 97% of the world's scientists contrive an environmental crisis, but they're exposed by a plucky band of billionaires and oil companies. Particularly in the English-speaking world, we're seeing systematic attacks on environmental policy, on measures designed to look after clean air and clean water and biodiversity and so on. They're much more sophisticated and comprehensive than ever in the past. They're very well funded, and there's a coalition underpinning them. The obvious vested interests of the industries that stand to lose from a transition. There's also a bunch of old blokes who look like me and older who feel as though the sustainability debate is an implicit criticism of them and their own values and achievements. There are some genuine sceptics, but in my view there aren't many of those. A lot of it's contrary denialism. And there are powerful media interests that are aligned with this agenda. So it is harder to get up a good, sensible environmental reform and to make it stick. So I'm not saying that this is a trivial exercise. So after listening to all the presentations yesterday and reading the posters this morning, I can see that you guys know your market. It's pretty obvious where your services can be of use. And we've heard about this through many excellent presentations. So I'm not going to reiterate those for you guys, except that bottom one I think is a crucial one. There does need to be someone who's the keeper of the long view above the fray. But in a lot of the stuff I heard yesterday, it wasn't as clear to me that the pathway to impact was really clear. So I saw a lot of wonderful technology producing amazing data, but it wasn't as clear to me the demand pool dimension. Exactly who is going to use this, to make exactly what sorts of decisions, how are they going to do it, what form do they need it in, when do they need it, at what cadence, and how good does the data have to be? Anyone got an answer to that question? Good enough. And unpacking what good enough means is absolutely crucial in every separate context. Sometimes that data will need to be absolutely gold standard, peer reviewed, yada, yada, yada. Other times it just needs to be good enough to get us where we need to get to. And understanding the return on investment curve for the quality of the information is important. But I want to finish with a couple of little provocations. a lot of the things that we're grappling with are driven by climate change. Climate change is driven by emissions, by carbon pollution. One of the most rapidly growing areas of carbon pollution is data centres. You guys are contributing to the problem. Your exploding data streams are not just going into a mythical cloud somewhere and magically existing. They are using a shitload of water and generating an enormous amount of carbon pollution. And thinking about where that's happening, how it's happening, understanding the footprint. And Microsoft and others are now walking back their commitments to being carbon neutral. And the data centres, particularly with AI, using ridiculous amounts of energy to do stuff that you could do on an Excel spreadsheet or with a calculator. And that brings me to the broader sovereignty and governance issues. The tech bros are not benign philanthropists. They want your stuff and they want to control it and they want to monetize it. And what you are doing is highly strategic for Australia. The data streams that you guys sit on are of enormous strategic significance. And so I'm assuming at a Tern and NCRIS level that people are talking to our security agencies in Canberra and are talking to PM&C and Treasury about the significance of the asset that we're building here and its strategic value. Where do we want the knowledge of where Australia's best soils are and where the best aquifers are? Where do we want that knowledge sitting? And who do we want to own it? Those are important questions. And, we need to be thinking strategically about that. And I went to Montpellier to look after an enterprise with 10,000 scientists and in 90 countries and a research budget of $1 billion. And who were the two biggest funders of that whole global effort? One, USAID. Two, the Brits. Three, Bill Gates. And USAID just got taken out overnight. My colleagues that I've dealt with for years and years and years suddenly disappeared off the internet. Completely. Uncontactable. The head of the US Bureau of Food Security, gone. So you can't assume that the international collaborations and goodwill and social capital that's been built up over years will be there, will endure. We need to be thinking, so my successor in that role, I think, has now got 40 or 50% less budget than I had to deal with. Because the US they didn't just cut their money, they exited. They're not allowed to go to the meetings. So gone completely. So this is incredibly, to say that we live in uncertain and volatile times is a glib understatement. We need to be thinking again from a sovereignty and a governance perspective far more strategically about where we're going and how. So I want to finish up, Beryl, with some, I know there are a lot of, it's gratifying to see how many early career researchers there are and others in the room. But from a antediluvian old fart, here are some lessons that I've learned along the way. Like me, you should assume that you'll have multiple careers. The days of spending 50 years in one organisation and retiring with a gold watch are long gone. And in thinking about the evolution of your career, try to work on becoming a T-shaped professional. You've got your vertical area of disciplinary expertise, where you are in touch with the latest literature, probably generating some of it, you're going to the best conferences, you know the leading people in the world. And that's what gets you the interview, the job interview. But everyone who's on the shortlist has got that T, that vertical part of the T. The things that get you the job, the employer is asking, is this person going to be a good fit for our organisation, for our team, What are they going to bring other than their technical expertise? So working on those generic or horizontal skill sets, communication, teamwork, planning, project management, budgeting, evaluation, milestone reporting, conflict resolution, those are incredibly valuable skills. And when you get to the interview, that's what people are evaluating. How good a fit is this person going to be for us? What will they bring to us? So make sure that you're working on both axes in your career development, and think about how you can develop those generic skills as well as your deep technical expertise. Networking's not some sort of greasy pole climbing, sleazy activity. It's really important for your mental health, but also for your professional development, on both of those dimensions. And don't be afraid to be proactive in seeking out mentors. Old coots like me love being, asked for advice and so on. It's mutually beneficial for us. But that agenda that I've outlined of the converging insecurities of water, food, energy, health, all amplified by climate change, is unfortunately creating fabulous career opportunities for people with the sort of skills in this room. And that whole sphere of agriculture, climate, food and ecosystem science is rich with opportunity for bright young professionals. So go for it.
Thank you, Andrew. That was a wonderful keynote speak to get us going on our second day of our symposium. And Andrew, while I was introducing you as the inaugural chair of the Tern board, I overlooked highlighting the fact that the foundation director of Tern is with us today, Stuart Finn. So thank you, Stuart, for being here. Okay, into our sessions. I'm pleased to introduce to those that weren't at our event last night, Professor Albert van Dijk is the chair of our first session for the day. If you're out at morning tea, do manage to take one of the reports, Australia's Environment Report, our decadal report that we are launched last night, and it will see the general public traffic today. Albert's promise to sign any that you would like. So Albert has been associated with Tern also since early days, but he is at Australian National University, and he's been with the Fenner School at the ANU since 2012. And he established and leads the Centre for Water and Landscape Dynamics at the ANU, and has graduated many people who've gone on to make a mark in life. So I think that's always a really important thing to have done, building the next generation. So Albert's got over 200 publications you can find out there, and really likes to sit at the intersection of a whole lot of things that have water involved in them. So I'd like to welcome Albert to the podium to run the symposium for the next session. Thank you.
Thank you, Beryl. Those who were here yesterday know that I got a very simple and easy job here. It's symbolic only. We've got 4 speakers. The speakers, will be able to see their name on the screen, and we'll progress to present in turn. And after that, we'll have some questions. So please do try to generate some discussion. Use your app to ask them some questions, or if that doesn't work for you, I believe you can still email Beryl on a personal email, and then we can have some lively discussion at the end of this session. So without further ado, I'm going to take a back seat and invite Anurag to present to you.
First, I got to work this out. But so, good morning, everyone. My name's Anurag. I work at the Australian Access Federation. I'm a solutions architect at AAF. We call we call the Australian Access Federation. So today I'm presenting to you about AF and Tern's collaboration on federated identity. I'll be co-presenting with Gerhard from Tern. I'll talk about what the AF does, who they are, and I will then pass on to Gerhard about how Tern uses AF today. So let's move on. So just before we go any further, I'd like to say the acknowledgement of country. In the spirit of reconciliation, the Australian Access Federation acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respect to their elders past and present and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. So some of you may not have heard of the AF. We're Australia's National Identity Federation. And for over 16 years, we've built a reputation for leadership and innovation in identity and access management. We're part of a global network of over 80 federations worldwide. You may have heard of Edugain. We're also trust and identity capability of the national research infrastructure. We're the lead, we're the Australian ORCID Consortium lead. We're the ORCID Consortium lead in Australia. So I'll work that out. We're also the founding partner of AHEX, the Australian Higher Education Cyber Security Service. And yeah, we've been providing services for 16 years. So I just wanted to point out what the AF does. We currently have 109 organizations that subscribe to the AF. These are subscribers like universities, research organizations who access services throughout the world, and we have over 1,000 connected services, nearly 700 of them in Australia and over 400 international services. We enable nearly 11 million authentications every year. This is so that all our researchers can access all the services across the world and across the globe and stay connected and share data. And there's a lot of conversation happened today and yesterday about data being accessible to the right people. I think Andrew brought that up before, who should have access to the data. That's how we enable that data. So I represent, these are some of the groups that we partner with that are represented here on the screen. We don't work alone. We build in collaboration with our partners. We provide research services, authentication services, federation services to all Australian Australian universities, and many of our other research partners as well. So I just wanted to show you how a federation works. This is a diagram that this is a diagram that shows how a federation works, where a user from one university or organization wants to connect to a service presented to them by a different university. What the AF does is handles the secure exchange of information from the university's home IDP, which is the researcher's home IDP, which is the university they come from. Using those credentials, they can log into a service provided by another university. For example, some of you access, well, most of you access Tern services. When you log into a Tern service, you can use your credentials from your home IDP or your home institution to authenticate and access those services. Okay, so the inclusion of AF as an increased capability marked a step change in how we support trust and identity in research. We aim to align Australia's infrastructure with international best practices, supporting system-wide identity and access management. So the AF has partnered with lots of different research organizations through our incubator program. What we do is we work with our partners, we understand their requirements, we then, in collaboration with them, design specific solutions, and these are more like test solutions to see if an identity and access system might work for them in some way. The idea is we test these systems to ensure that it helps the researchers who are going to be accessing all this research data available. So currently we have 7 incubators running, 7 incubator partners. Some of them might be in the room as well, actually, I'm not too sure. But we do a lot of work with earth and environmental sciences at the moment. Now, on top of the incubator program, we have the flagship program. We currently have 1 flagship program running. It's basically, we take a deep dive into the collaboration with our partners. So this is for more complex requirements, so where people where there's multiple organizations that come together to solve a common purpose. For example, we're doing, our current flagship program is the Guardians program. They do a lot of cancer research, and there's about 7 different organizations that have come together, and they want to make their research available to a lot of researchers around the world. And some of those researchers are not just university students, or there could be industry, there could be international collaborations and so forth. So we make that happen through our flagship program. The overall intent of both the incubator and the flagship program is to ensure that services provided through the AAF can support collaborative research organizations. So many organizations come together and work towards a common purpose to solve a particular type of cancer or solve some problem. In this space it'll be more like soil or earth or climate problems, of how we can handle some of those changes. So I wanted to show what the AF are working towards. In a typical user service environment, a researcher would have separate accounts to many different services. They'll have a username, password to log into a data portal, data visualization, or HPC. What we're working towards is a collaborative research environment where services have a shared understanding of who a user is and what permission structures they should have. The idea behind this is that the services don't need to actually do the work themselves. All the work is done in the middle, and the permissions and the groups can be propagated out to all the services. This solves a lot of, this has a lot of benefits. There'll be the one single identity to access all services. There's consistency. Group management can easily be propagated to all the different services, so there's no way that someone, like based on group management, one person would have access to one service, but they'll have the right access to all the services they need. It saves the services actually doing those jobs. So services currently assign access themselves within the service. What we're working towards is that central trust and identity service that will allow all of that to happen. Now, AF also does a lot of work within the earth and environmental sciences. You all use a lot of the Tern tools. You may use your university credentials to log into some of those. So we enable the secure federated identity access to Tern services, ARDC services, and services offered by a lot of research organizations. And many of the 1,000 plus services connected are, directly used by researchers for modeling ecosystems, assessing sensor data, or collaborating. How can the AF help? So we have a table set up outside. We welcome for you to come talk to us, even if you're building an app, or if you're thinking about building an app, or you're thinking about making your app available to researchers across organizations. Please come and talk to us. We're always happy to help. Thank you. Thanks, Gerhard.
Thank you very much, Anurag. 1 minute. That's a quick one now. So we were basically a long-standing partner with AF. We are one of the most earliest adopters of their services, and we are very grateful for the support and services they offer. Quick slide, how we are using AF. So we have a self-hosted authentication service. That's basically where a Tern account sits, using standard protocols to integrate the AF identity. And the biggest advantage we get from it, we get trusted identities. So we know who the user is and how much trust we can put in that this identity is really this person who pretends to be. And the other one is we don't need to store any passwords. So much less of a security issue at the end. And biggest user base we have comes via AF services. How does it look like? You come to, at some stage, you will have to log into one of our Tern services. You pick your AF button there, or any of the others we're offering. Pick your home organization. In my case, it was University of Queensland. Asked me to log into my Queensland University account. That tells AF, that's me, and AF then tells us, that's me again. So we can, that's the chain of trust that's being built up through AF, which is really awesome. And once you're logged in, you get access to all of our services we're offering, our data discovery portal, the various data access services and platforms we have, analytics platform, and also for programmatic access, we have an API key service that's, of course, driven and linked with your identity. And the last question probably is, why do we need to know you? All our data is public. But there are some important things to it. For instance, intellectual property. Your work you're doing, your data set you're producing needs to be tied to your name if you're sharing accounts, for instance. Who can trace back who did actually the work? Auditing is another important bit for security and whatever happened, and for the same reason with the link to the intellectual property. Reporting, our funding providers, data access providers are really interested in who is accessing their data, how much data is being used, produce metrics, how important the data is for what it's being used. So that's another important bit of information we need there. And the other great thing is it offers you access to all the encrypt facilities in general. So you use your same ID, no 10 logins to remember, you just go in with your usual institutional identity. The same is for international collaborators. AF, as mentioned, is hooked up to EduGain or to ORCID IDs. We were also able to link up with CI Logon, which is a US federation, and this way you have no problems logging into anywhere to any of our systems. I hope I fit that in 1 minute. Thank you very much.
So, good morning, everyone. My name is Junrong. I'm a software engineer from Tern data team. I'm mainly working on information model and control vocabularies, so which is a hidden infrastructure behind the published datasets on our websites. So, the big one? Okay. Oh, cool. Okay, yeah. So today we are going to see how the system connects of the ecological data sets together. So there comes a challenge. For the same thing, we can have multiple names. So for example, the diameter could be called as dBH, diameter at breast height, and also stem diameter sometimes. But computers can't detect them all because they are not exactly the same name. So I provided 3 examples here. You see the data fields have different names, and the observed property is called differently as well. But after standardization, they're the same. And we assign a persistent identifier for the observed property. So there is more description about it, so provide more context. So what are control vocabularies? Control vocabularies are standardized lists of terms with exact definitions. Each of them has a persistent identifier, and it's always available for reference and reuse. And all of our control vocabularies are managed like this tree hierarchy. It follows some international standards. And how vocabularies transform your data? Vocabularies make the same field data machine readable, and there are automatic connections across projects and time. It enhances the discoverability through consistent descriptions. And another example of the raw data, after standardization, they are machine readable, they are machine searchable, and also automatically discoverable. Here are some of our control vocabularies. Firstly, it's platforms. So platforms are where data collection happens. We have platforms with exact locations and identifiers, and also a concept scheme to classify platforms into different types. Similarly, for instruments, we have instrument instances. So these instruments are physically existing with serial numbers. Another concept scheme to classify instruments into different types. So methods are how data is collected. So they have the standardized methodology descriptions, like what instruments are used, what are the instructions, and it ensures reproducible science practices. Oh, what happened? Okay. So this is a concept scheme of all of our collections methods. Feature types are what you are studying, vegetation, soil, fauna, and it defines the ecological entities being observed. It organizes data by ecological components. Parameters are what you are measuring, the observable properties of the feature of interest from the field. It has standardized measurement definitions, and it's a core vocabularies for all of the ecological observations. Yeah. Attributes are variables that are looked at from direct observations, and it provides contextual information about the samples, the sites, and different field activities. It could also be metadata that enriches your datasets. Categorical collections are lookup tables for parameters and attributes. So it ensures the consistent data entry across different projects. And each of the value, they have the detailed description and also persistent identifiers too. We have hundreds of categorical collections for different purposes. Organizations are who's collecting and managing the data, and it tracks the data provenance and the responsibility. So now I want to give a brief introduction about Tern ontology. So Tern ontology is the information model showing relationship between different concepts, and it's a foundation for all of the vocabulary integration, and it connects everything together. So this is an example of the sampling activities, how we define sampling. So like this small node here, it's people and organizations. So the story we can follow, this diagram is like people and organizations, they follow some methods, procedures here, and visit some sites or transects. During some site visits, they use the samplers' instruments to conduct the sampling activity and on some feature of interest, like fauna or flora. The result is like material sample or samples. Yeah. So everything is connected with each other, and it's linked data. So there is another example of the observation. The difference here is like observation, we identify the observed property for each of the feature of interest for each individual observation here. So this example is observation on the soil samples. Like we can observe the color or pH of the soil sample. But there is some additional information of the soil sample we observed. Like if we observe the pH of the soil sample, we need to know like which depth is the soil sample from. So that's a function for attributes. So we record the depth range of the soil sample as well to provide the observation context. So there's some vocabularies in action. First is our data discovery portal. Data discovery portal has all of our metadata records. So we can search by standardized terms, find the relevant datasets, and it has vocabulary-driven filters and facilitated search. Yeah, let's have a look at the interface. Yeah, so when clicks search by parameters, follows the vocabulary hierarchy step by step, and finally you will find the most specific vocabulary item to explore metadata records. EcoPlots is our plot data with systematic service. It makes the cross-project comparisons data possible. So another screenshot of the EcoPlots. So here, people can search by regions, sources, procedures, feature types. Feature types here, you see a drop-down list of all the feature types. So these feature types are indexed from our control vocabularies. Yep. So behind every dataset, published datasets are automatically tagged with vocabularies. There is no extra work for researchers, and they enable the instant discoverability and integration. So another screenshot of our data submission tool, it's shared. So here, when select the parameter, all of our parameters are indexed here, and you can select whatever you want, and then directly submit the records. So the information model and also the control vocabularies make our datasets fair. It's findable, it has consistent terms, it's accessible because they have persistent identifiers, interoperable, it has the standard formats, and it's reusable because it's always there. Yeah. Next one is, as ecologist, what is your role in the vocabulary development? So you are domain experts, define and refine the terms, and there is collaborative review process ensures the quality. Your expertise shapes the entire ecosystem. So questions, how can we improve our existing vocabularies? And also what terms are missing from your domains? Let's work together to make Tern data more connected. There are some useful online resources, so I took off the screenshots from them. Oh, oops. Yeah, I just have a final sentence. It's like, we create vocabularies, we review vocabularies, and we also publish vocabularies, but this process never ends because we welcome suggestions from all ecological communities to help improve our vocabularies. Thank you.
So, good morning all. So I'm Siddeswara, I'm the program lead for the Tern Data Services Analytical Platform. Today I will talk about the tools we have built for the community, and then it will be a quick worldwide view of the couple of tools that would be useful for the community. So there are more tools available as well. So there are a couple of posters. You please come and talk to us in the booth as well as in the poster session. So this I'm giving a talk on behalf of my team. So I'm just a spokesperson. So the team does all the work. So just to provide a bit of a context, I think yesterday JC put this slide. So Tern collects data at different scale. Yeah, so the Tern collect data at the continental scale. So these are predominantly these remote sensing products, and then the model-derived products. And then the next stage is the regional scale. So these are typically the plot, around 1,000 of them spread across the country. So predominantly they collect the vegetation and soil characteristics in the plot. So the next one is the ecosystem processes. These are the intensive monitoring sites. There are 12 of them, and then the flux towers, there are 36 of them as part of that. These are highly sensorized, collected some of the data set 24/7, depending from 10 seconds to half an hour time series. So predominantly time series data sets. Yeah. So if you look at these things, each one is completely different, and the collection is from the satellite to the in-situ sensors to human observations. Yeah. So we can't build like a one system to deal with everything. So that's why we have multiple systems to deal with this, but we bring them together so that it abstract to the user depending on what level of information you want. So the tools differs. Yeah. So today I will just provide, if you are a researcher who comes to Tern who don't know much, probably these are some of the tools that would be useful for you. I think if you are completely new to Tern, don't know what Tern does, what Tern data what data Tern has got, then the best place to go is to the data discovery portal. So we get a lot of messages where somebody has shared data 10 years back and that link is not working. So apologies for that, because Tern has evolved over the last 15 years. We are not responsible for every link every researcher must have sent to you. So the best place to come is that go to here, data discovery portal. All the links from here would work. Even if we change the link, we make sure that it redirects old links, redirect to the new links. So as Jun mentioned, in the data discovery portal, we provide search based on the map, and then as well as the free text search. In the map search, we index all the data set based on the different regions, including the Hebrew region, sub-Hebrew region, NRM region, state and territories, electorals, and then you can search your data based on whatever the region you are interested in. And then we provide a search based on the platform, the instruments, and then the parameters as well. And then we put up some themes in the front page so that it's a quick search. So that will keep changing as well. So depending on the type of data set, we keep that change. That won't remain constant as well. So we try our best to keep improving the search. This is, as Jun said, this is an ongoing work. So we keep improving that one. And then once you come to the search results, so you have an additional facet where you can search based on the species and the time range, everything. So even again, these facets, if there is a more facets is required, we will keep adding that as well. So just to provide an example, assume that you want to fly the flux tower, the Samford, which is close to Brisbane. That's why I picked this one. So this is like what Jun was mentioning about all the metadata, everything. So you can see everything. So there is a link to the data, and then there is a link to the citation. So that is a very critical thing. So we don't publish data without any citation information. As Gerhard said, the intellectual property is very important. And then if you look at so I want to mention, a lot of people complain to us, look, somebody published data in somewhere as a CC0, we don't do it, partly because under the Australian copyright law, you cannot let go the morality of the thing. So that's why the CC BY is important. If you are publishing from the external party by CC0, it doesn't substitute with the Australian law, just to make sure. Yeah. So that's why we publish in CC BY. So that's why the citation information will be there, so that we make sure that whatever this data we publish, so that is citable. And then there is an access link, so that's where you go and access the data. And then if you scroll down, as Jun was mentioning, all the control vocabularies will be there. What are the parameters available? Who owns that data? What are the in-platform used? What is the instrument used? Everything you will find in that one. And then, so if we take another example, so this is another popular product, probably the flagship product of Tern, continuously published, is still updated, and in collaboration with the Queensland government. So you can see the link to the data, and then so we visualize the data set as well. That has got a link as well. That will link to the visualization portal. And then once you go there, you can go through the time series, how that map looks, and then you can, if you want, you can download any of those time series as well. So that is a good segue to the visualization portal. So, well, Albert is chairing this. It is good. We start this in collaboration with Albert Group, development of these visualization portals. So that's why there is an ANU logo as well there. We kept that. So this one is basically, we thought that, look, there is no national spatial data visualization thing. Instead of each one developing one, we thought that, look, why don't we develop one so that we share this. So that's why in this one, there's a fair bit of a data layers that comes from the Albert Group as well. It's not only this one, it's Tern one. Having said that, so whatever the raster data or even the vector data, we harvest this, whatever the data we publish, it is available here as well as part of the visualization thing. Here as well, you can search anything, and then you click on each one of them, and then you can look at that one. So if the data is a cloud-optimized GeoTIFF, what we have done is, we have indexed the data into a different administrative area as well, where you can select any of the Hebrew region. For example, you can click on particular Hebrew region, and then you can see what is the value in that particular Hebrew region. So this is a very common thing. Generally, some of the customers ask, especially who work on the NRM region. Say, for example, they want to know what is the value in the Cape York. They don't want to download the entire data set and then try to find out, calculate that one. So they wanted like a quickly go and look at what is the value at the Cape York. So that is why we built this feature there, so that it's very easy for the users to get that one. So I think Tern collects a massive amount of the systematic survey data. Yesterday, there's a fair bit of on the surveillance monitoring you heard about. So, and then there is an ecosystem processes as well, which collects the data. So nowhere in the world there is a data integration platform to bring all the surveillance data together. So there is a lot of websites which provides like an individual data sets. What we have done is build a data integration platform to bring all the systematic survey data together. So the information model, Jun alluded to, so we built for the EcoPlot, and then that the same information model is used for the DQ to build the biodiversity data repository, BDR, as well. So here, again, we have ingested the surveillance data sets, especially the ecosystem processes. Assume that if you want to get like a vegetation height across Western Australia, whatever the sites available, you can go here, select the region, state, Western Australia, and then type the vegetation height in the parameter field. You should get all the sites which has got a vegetation height. So for example, somebody was writing, one of our former colleagues, she wanted to look at the species richness across the Western Australian sites of the surveillance, and then she pulled all the sites from the Western Australia. She can derive the species richness. She emailed me telling her, oh, that's very awesome, I don't have to email you to ask for the data, kind of a thing. So that was pretty good. So that's exactly what we want. We don't want to answer everything, gatekeeper to that. So if you need any features, talk to us. We're happy to build on that one. As I talked yesterday, so we added the samples as well. You can search for the samples collected by the surveillance monitoring team as well. So one of the salient feature is a typical use case from the researcher side. They collect data, they download data, they write up a paper for 6 months. Last minute, they write up the paper, submit it, even citing that data set, because they don't know where they got the data because it's sitting in their laptop for 6 months. So we have provided an option where you can mint a DOI for any of the aggregated data as well. You can go back to the dashboard, you say that I want a DOI, it will mint a DOI as well. So we wanted to make sure that we gave all the opportunity for the researchers to cite the data, because we wanted to make sure that this data is a first order research asset rather than sitting in the auxiliary information. So the next one is the echo images. So this is the image repository for Tern. So Tern collects a fair bit of the PhenoCam data set, which is a time series data collected from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. every half an hour. So actively collecting. So we ingest that data set, create a chromatic indices, it's available. So currently we have a chromatic indices for about 250,000 data points. So still around 700,000 are available. So we are working with the team to get the region of interest to process those data sets. Again, this will make you to get integrated. For assume that you wanted to get a PhenoCam from phenology data from the January to June from the Alice Mulga, Kalparam, any other super sites, you can able to do that with a couple of clicks of the button. Again, same thing, once you're happy with it, you can basically mint a DOI for that if you're writing a paper. The other option, what we are looking at is, so we have a massive amount of data, especially raster data sets. It's very hard to download everything. So we have provided the virtual desktop environment, what we call it as a Tern in a box. So it runs on a browser which access to all the raster data sets. It's again, you log in using the AAF or Google, and then you select, whether you want a GPU or the CPU node, and then you access to the data. There is a Tern data icon there, and you run the process. So we provide RStudio, Jupyter Notebook, and then some workflow tools as well. And then you can share with your collaborators. You create a group inside this. So and then write a paper and then share the analysis, everything inside this one. Assume that you do all the research. You wanted to share data with Tern so that it's used by the wider community. We have built shared. So again, is the web application. You log in, you answer certain couple of questions, and then you upload the data. Some of our team will curate that, make sure it compliant to certain standard, and then you can publish that data set. So in summary, we have built tools where it's useful for the community, so to search and discovery, to the submission of the data set as well. So these are not the only tools. So we have built a bit of a libraries as well. So there's OSPlots R, so built by the surveillance team as an R package. And then we have built a Python package to access the flux data as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Guru. And can I also invite Anurag and Gerhard and Junrong to join us for a Q&A session. I got some questions that came through, thank you, Isabel, that came through the app or email, I'm not sure. And if you still have questions, I suppose that they won't show up here, so no, then you'll have to ask them in the coffee break. Thank you for your talks just now. We've got a few questions. So first is for June. Somebody calls you June? Junrong, June? You said the ontology is about a relationship between concepts. Is it flexible enough to add new relationships which may change some of the existing relationships?
Okay, yeah. So another thing I didn't mention is like the data in our Tern websites. They are in RDF format, so they are resource description framework. So the reason we use this kind of data is because it's expandable. Compared with traditional data schemas using tables like the spreadsheets, it's expandable. It can add any additional properties to each of the class as we need. So yeah, so the answer is yes. So we can expand the information model and also any of our control vocabularies to involve new things. And that is a feature of ecological data sets. Yeah, it's changing. Yeah, everything is changing. Yeah.
Thank you. A question, I suppose, maybe for Anurag. Identification services are supporting seamless access to researchers. What options exist to enable access to those who lack such institutional membership, such as farmers or indigenous communities?
Do you want to have a go from a Tern perspective first? From a Tern perspective, yeah.
Yeah, from our perspective, well, we rely on external federations like AF and CI logon, but our authentication system is able to hook up to any OpenID Connect enabled service. So the option there would be use Google or Microsoft accounts. For instance, the American Federation CI logon has them already included. Or we can set up one of those authentication mechanisms as well. As you've seen on my slide before, there's also a Google login where we interface directly with Google. And I think any of those already available cloud service identity providers can just be added anywhere.
Just to add to that, Tern has made it very simple for a lot of researchers who are not part of AF or other federations to log in using Google accounts, Microsoft accounts. From a broader perspective, though, AF is also working on coming up with a solution where we can allow researchers to log in, like citizen scientists, people working out of their garages or wherever they're working from, out in the field. They should be able to log in and access the research services that they need access to complete their research and do ecosystem modeling or whatever they need to do. We're working on those solutions as a broader community, along with the assurance of they're the right people to do the right job and access the right information at the right time.
Thank you. And maybe a follow-up question there. Is the system for logging in and ensuring the identity of the user also used internationally? Are there any special issues for international researchers to download data?
From a wider perspective, yes, systems are available internationally. We make it available via EduGain all over the world, across the 80 federations that are around the world. In terms of downloading data issues, I'll pass that on to Gerhard again.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe to add a little bit to that, Australian Access Federation is a federation of Australian institutions. CI logon is a similar thing in America. EduGain is an international one. And what AF does is then it federates to other federations. So it kind of builds a worldwide federation of federations, so that the more things that get connected and add to these federations, the easier they will be accessible through the already existing systems too.
So just to add to that one, it's easier for the international people to access our data than the state and federal government, honestly, because if we see a CI logon, international, everybody can access it. We add that so that the state and federal government can access it. They blocked everything. So nobody from a state and government can access our data. We ask them, and then there is a Vanguard, which is a federation for the state and government. I was talking to the AF people. They are working with them for 10 years. They couldn't able to agree to integrate with them. So if the state and federal government can't access our data, it's not our problem, it's their problem.
Maybe a quick follow on that. So there's probably some sovereign risk sort of consideration behind limiting that access. But what are you finding? I'm assuming you're finding it more and more challenging. You're seeing more and more cyber attacks at public institutions and such. What does that mean for your work?
So At the moment, we don't save identities. AF doesn't keep any identities. We basically we're a federation, we take the information from the organization and pass it on to the end service where people need to access. So we don't actually store any of that information. But yes, you talked about the sovereign access part. It's the government that Guru mentioned that we're not able to, they're not able to log into the Tern applications at the moment is because they've been blocked from their end and they've got policies in place and they've got cybersecurity practices that they're following to say, we don't want our identities to leave the government organizations and go out into another service application. So they've put a block from their end. Can it be enabled? Yes, of course it can be enabled. Is there a risk? Possibly. Can that be mitigated? Absolutely. But yeah, it's up to everyone to work together and come to a common purpose to make sure that services like Tern services, which are probably the best in Australia, are available and accessible to every researcher, not just people who have a university account.
Yeah. Thank you.
Maybe one last thing as well. Because we are federally funded, government funded, and they want us to report on who is using it, at least on a higher level, which groups of users exist. So they kind of need to come to some agreement in what sort of attributes they're going to release to other services like us. They can't put the same requirement on us and then deny us access to it.
Yeah. Thank you. Maybe a last question, because the time is marching on. To Guru, you showed a whole host of quite a list of tools there. I guess the question here is, are there some tutorials available that work through those tools, maybe using use cases as such?
Yeah, so for every tool has got a user guide. So I put it in the last one. So with every tool, if you go to the resource, there is a user guide which provides a step-by-step of using the thing. Only some tools have got some tutorials as well, accessing certain data set. Are there, for example, the EcoPlot has got the tutorials of using even the APIs and everything. Yeah.
Great. Okay, I think we should probably wrap it up there because it is about coffee time. Please join me in thanking the speakers from this session. Coffee is served in the usual place outside, I'm sure. If you could be back by 10:40, I am reliably informed. Oh, it's become 10:35 now, is it? Okay, 10:35 it is. So grab yourself a coffee, and we'll see you back here.